And welcome back to the Field Coach Experts podcast, where we talk about real life wins, lessons, and aha moments from the field that help franchise teams shift from reactive support to strategic growth coaching. And today I'm so excited because I haven't seen them in a minute. I'm joined by Eric and Shannon, who are both coaches with Voda Cleaning and Restoration, which is an emerging brand that's been growing really fast over the last, year to 2 years. And when I first met these guys, they were already restoration pros, and they were in their coaching roles. And like a lot of field coaches in young brands, they were juggling teaching and training and a whole lot of putting out fires and dealing with issues. So, let's just say that they did a lot of talking to franchisees. There wasn't a lot of structure, and they didn't have a lot of time for goal setting and accountability because they were dealing with those fires and issues. And so that's why they came to AC Inc. And we worked together, I think, guys, for maybe almost a year or somewhere in that ballpark. And we implemented strategic growth coaching. And so today we're going to talk about what that shift looked like, and what they learned, and the impact that it's had on them and their franchisees and their brand as a whole. So let's dive in. Thank you two for joining me. I'm so excited to see you.
Thanks for having us, Jen.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so happy to be here.
I know, it's so fun. Okay, before we get rolling, would just like each of you to take a little bit of time and tell us, or tell our audience, how you ended up at Voda and in the field coach role. Eric, you want to start? Or
Sure.
Shannon, whoever wants to start.
I'll go ahead and start. I was walking around the streets of Charleston on vacation, not super happy about the place I was working, and I came across an Instagram ad, and it said, wanted people to be interested in buying a franchise with some hottest new brand, and I knew all the brands, and they said Voda, and I didn't know what a Voda was. And I started looking at the website. I listened to our CEO's podcast. I liked what I heard. Sounded really interesting to me, and something that kind of fit, what I wanted professionally. So I applied, and I felt that I was a great candidate, and as such, I didn't get a call back for 3 days. So I hunted down the COO, Zach, his information, called him up, and about 3 weeks later, I had a job. So, that's the short version of it.
And Eric, you'd had a long history in restoration, right? And
Yes,
is that's what kind of intrigued you, was that because of your long history in restoration, you thought, you know what, well, man, I could coach franchisees in this industry.
Absolutely. I worked for one of the largest brands, if not the largest brand in the industry. My family, we owned some of our own licenses, and then I had spent 30 years in the industry, wearing multiple hats, whether it was the sales hat or the operations hat or the HR hat, and even the of the consultant for a number of years. And this kind of gave me an opportunity to do the thing that I'm most passionate about, which is supporting other people in their growth.
Awesome. And Shannon, tell us a little bit about your start.
Yeah. So I been in restoration for over 20 years. I was in a coaching role with a previous restoration brand, and one of my coworkers at that brand had left and started working with Dan and Zach, and kind of recruited me over into Voda. I was super hesitant at first and really didn't know if I had much of an interest in a brand new kind of startup restoration company. But the more I got to know Dan and Zach, and their passion, and really understood what they were building, I was all in and on board.
Amazing.
Yes.
Awesome. And Shannon, if you think back to before we started working together, and what you were hoping to get out of that relationship. Let's maybe paint the picture for us of what were you guys tackling in your coaching, and what did it kind of look like that made you feel like, you know what, we could use some help and some direction to level up what we're doing with our franchisees.
Yeah, for sure. So when we, 2 years ago, we were brand new. So we're bringing in coaches and bringing in experts to fill that role, but we really didn't have a structure. We didn't really have an organization. We didn't really have any systems, and we were sort of just really reactive, taking it as it comes and building as we were going. And we realized, the holes that we had there in aligning all of the coaches on a systematic approach that would ensure consistency in coaching, organization, and proactive approaching to coaching in our network. And all of those parts and pieces were a little bit lacking prior to working with you, Jen. Even down to how we structured a field visit, how we structured a phone call, what kind of cadence do we have these calls? Prior to work with you, we were all kind of all over the place and really didn't know kind of what we didn't know. And that
Mhm.
there was such an opportunity and a real systematic structure and process to this role and that relationship.
Yeah, and you're no different than most emerging brands. Probably 95% of emerging brands. You're building the plane as you're flying it.
Yeah,
Again, with not just in franchising, but in business. You're
right.
figuring out those systems and so on, and you don't know what you don't know. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think probably a lot of our listeners are kind of shaking their head going, yep, either that's where we
Sure,
are or that's where we used to be. So Eric,
sure,
let me
sure.
ask you, looking back now, what do you think the hardest part of coaching franchisees reactively is?
There's no focus on strategy. If you, you become a firefighter and you're just putting out fire after fire after fire, and you're not teaching at any point, how do you scale your business? Um, you know, you just become this person like, how do I do this? And there's still a little bit of that. It's especially in this
Hmm.
industry, it's kind of inherent. But once we get through those initial things, it's no longer how do I do this? Now, when I get the question, well, what would you do in this situation? My first inclination in a coaching call was just to spit out the technical jargon, tell them how to do it. There you go. Now, what methods would you do to do this so now they can start thinking and develop a little bit more confidence that this is something that they can achieve? They can get this done. They are capable. And now we're not so much, you know, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months down the road, still dealing with fighting fires. Now we're going into, as we're getting further down the road, now we're talking about, strategy. How are we building this business? What are we doing on the sales side of the business? What are our contacts? What are the conversations? How are we following up with these things? And how are we setting ourselves up? Not just so that we stay in survival mode, but now how do we get to thrive? How do we grow this
Mhm.
business and really push forward?
Right. Absolutely. Amazing. Thanks, Eric. Um, so and Shannon, when we worked together, we did, I mean, both of you, obviously, we worked, I taught you, the strategic growth coaching um process, and we got that implemented. So you were using the toolbox, and obviously there was, strategies and techniques and things. And then part of what AC Inc. does when we're working with a brand is we, as the advisors, will observe your coaching sessions, because now with Zoom and Read AI and all of these other different texts that allow us to record sessions, we will give you kind of observations and feedback about your session to help improve. We all want to get better at what we're doing. So, well, looking back, what were some of the surprises that maybe came your way when we would talk about your different sessions, and or maybe some aha moments, or something that really you learned about yourself, or even it's like, man, I'm really glad I made that switch to do X, Y, or Z.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The value in having somebody else hear these calls, that was nothing I'd ever experienced before. And as we all want to get better in this role and hone in our coaching skills, having that peer feedback was just really critical and really eye-opening. I think I shared one call with you, Jen, in particular, that stands out with a really challenging franchise owner. And I really wasn't sure how to dissolve some of the heated emotion, to really get to the core of the problem, remove myself from that emotional piece, and really break that thing down so we could find resolve for this franchise owner, and weed through just the emotional charge. And you listened to that, and we came up with some strategies on how I could approach that particular owner, and I found that just so helpful. And that was one of the areas that I really needed to focus on, is how to dissolve those really challenging, heated conversations with an owner. So that one was really impactful for me, and the notes that I took on that call I still refer back to, on breaking these things down, and really getting to the core of the issue with that owner.
Yeah, I think it's some people are so self-conscious and worried that this is just somebody else coming in to critique them. And that's not what it's all
Yeah,
about at all. And
no,
both of you were so open to that, which I so appreciated, because you just wanted to learn and get better. And it's and sometimes it's just like somebody else that can
yeah,
see from the outside in, and give some insight. And sometimes what I find is when somebody can helpful is when somebody can give me some verbiage where I can't get out what I want to ask in order to
yes.
shift this franchisee a different direction, or whatever. I always find that that really helpful. Eric, we introduced the strategic growth coaching toolbox to Voda, which is a big element of, it's really the framework that we follow, that allows us to keep the if you will, the business plan, the vision, and the action steps, and the goals, and the needs analysis, and all the things of the franchisee that we do. Using that tool can sometimes be a challenge when you are so used to, okay, coaching is about helping and telling and giving the answers. Can you talk a little bit about how you made that shift to start using that toolbox, and the value maybe that you found in that?
Yeah. So at first, I try to be real present on calls. So I don't like to, if I'm going to take notes, I take them by hand. That way I can be really present. Because if I'm looking at my other screen over here, they know that I am. Now, if I'm helping them with something and I'm trying to pull something up to show them I'm getting to the right screen, that's one thing. But I try not to live over there. I have to live in this screen, talking with them, because it's part of the relationship that we build. So for me, what I ended up having to do was kind of almost memorizing it. So I had to almost commit that thing to memory so that I could start walking through it with them, and then opening it up and showing them, okay, these are the things we talked about. These are the discussions that we've had. Um, where are you at now? Give me an honest evaluation of where you think you are. And, you know, and generally, I find most franchisees, if they're not correct on that, they may be judging themselves too harshly. It's that 5% that think that they're way up here. And it's like, well, your numbers don't prove that. What are you doing? Uh, you know, but, it gives me a good place to say, look, this is where you're at. This is where you've gotten to. Here's where your incremental growth has gone. So, we've been able to improve through the process and show them that, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is how we get from point A to point B. It's one step at a time. Or, the old maxim, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It gives me a platform to be able to eat that elephant one bite at a time with that franchisee, and then be able to review with them. Here's what's happening. Here's what's going on, and you know, here's how we move you through.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I think one of the things that was important to us when we, created the toolbox was the ability for it to be customizable, or the coach to use it that works for them. Yes, there's the consistency there, but you could have 5 different coaches and we've taught everybody the same thing, but everybody kind of just uses it a little bit differently, and that's okay, because that we have to customize also, not to just ourselves, of course, but to our franchisees and our franchisees' needs. Shannon, can you talk a little bit about that? What I mean by we have to customize the use of our toolbox and our coaching to the needs of our franchisees?
Yeah, absolutely. What I love about that toolbox is that's what it is. It's a toolbox, and there's several things in it that can be used for different situations and different franchisees. And so, and a play and accountability. I think that's one of the biggest pieces of that tool. So accountability when just around rocks and core focuses over a given quarter, but also in challenging times, or if I've got a franchise owner that's kind of all over the place and I just need a place to help pull information out of them and put somewhere. So it creates clarity in their mind and gets rid of the noise. Let's get down to the true problems. And so I've got a tool within that toolbox to place those things. I've got a tool within that toolbox to place my goals. I've got a tool in that toolbox to show the progress and the action steps we're going to take to meet said goal. And I think when, as an entrepreneur and new entrepreneur, so much coming at these folks, right? And so to be able to have a time and a space to strategically get that stuff out of their head on paper in a way that makes sense to them and brings some clarity is just so powerful. And to Eric's point, and to your point as well, I've got some owners that love it. They are anticipating that on every one of our calls, and they want to dive in and they use it right in their daily practice. I have some others that are a little bit I'm guiding that maybe a little bit more because they're just not the kind of person that's going to get in and work that list type process. And so that's the because there's so many tools in the kit, you can kind of extract what you need for that particular owner, which I think is really, really cool.
Right. Awesome. Well said. Well said. And so, Eric, let me ask you, if we've got field coaches, I'm sure, that are listening right now. And again, I'm sure a lot of them are stuck in that reactive mode because it is so easy. It's probably one of the easiest things to do as coaches. I know, you coming in with 30 years of restoration experience and you love to help people. And, I did the same thing. I was in the supplemental education as a franchisee and then moved to coaching. I thought my role was to tell you everything that you need to know and to help you and solve all your problems and all your issues. And we know that, of course, there's going to be part of that. We call it consulting versus coaching. Part of consulting where we are giving answers and helping them figure out problems and dealing with issues. That's within the bigger coaching. But so my question is, if you've got some listeners that are stuck in that reactive mode, what is something that they could do themselves, one small thing even this week, to start being a little bit more proactive in their coaching?
This is an easy one for me. It kind of goes back to when Shannon was talking about the value of working with AC Inc. and you looking at our calls. So I sent you, like, over the course of a couple of days, I did these 4 calls with franchisees. They were all word for word the same thing.
Right.
I said the exact same thing. And and I think we talked about that for about a session and a half. You said the same thing. You said the same thing. And it helped me to sit there and go, wait a minute. If I'm saying the same thing, can I create a tool that can go out to the entire system that everybody can use? And now I can focus myself on other things that move the needle. If I'm talking to other coaches out there, it's just us coaches in the room. Don't your bosses, Jen, she's not here. Just us. You work your butt off every single day. You're trying to move the needle. You might even be bonused on their performance. Why don't we get to the things that moves the needle and makes your life easier and creates actionable steps to move them forward instead of talking about the same thing every single time? Because by the time you say it for the third time, you're sick of hearing yourself talk and you're losing the satisfaction in what you're doing. If we can move people from point A to point B to point C to point D and give them the tools that they need, then we don't have to be saying the same things. We need to move them through and dig deeper into what they're doing so that we can make a bigger difference in their business and make a bigger difference in your quality of life and job satisfaction. Okay,
Yeah,
Jen's back in
what
the
a
room.
great Yeah, what a great point, Eric, because it was true. You were giving some really great training in what you were talking about, right? About the how to do something. I can't remember what it was, but it was very valuable. But it was the same with all these calls. And then it was a thought, well, why can't I, the tool you're referring to, I think is some kind of collective training that we can do with everybody in a different situation, whether it's a video or a group training or a guide or something like that, that they can, refer back to, and let's keep our coaching calls so that we can move the needle. I think that I remember being very impactful, for you for sure. So Shannon, I'm going to ask you the same question. So what would be something that, a coach could do right now to try to be more proactive and get out of always being reactive?
Sure. So before I started working with you, I would have my coaching call set in an hour. One thing, and I would find myself, I would just go from call to call to call to call to call to call. One thing I think is so critical is maybe taking those calls to 45 minutes and spending 15 minutes ahead of that call to really proactively think through the conversation. What are you going to tack to? Understand pull out the pieces of what you know about this franchise owner. What did we talk about last month or last call, right? And go into the call with a plan. That way you're in control of it. They're not in control of it. And you are really then positioned and prepared to drive that franchise owner through that call in a very, very productive manner. And so I find that just pausing, taking a few minutes, preparing yourself for that conversation, I think sets you up for a really successful call. And then you're not just, you're reacting to what they're saying. You've got a plan going into the call.
Right. Absolutely, Shannon. I think that's a great one. I'm going to add to that because I know that the three of us talked about this as well, is so many coaches start their coaching call with, okay, tell me what's going on. And we know, right? We know that just starts the floodgates of, oh, well, this is happening and this is happening and I don't like this and I need help with this, and all the issues start coming out. And then before we know it, the call is done. And we haven't we've dealt with issues only because we've allowed that to happen. We asked the question and then away we went, away we go with trying to solve or whatever it is. I think that's a really, yep.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you. I have removed
No,
that.
go ahead.
I'm glad you said that question from my talking points. And in fact, I had a note on my wall at one point, like, you've got to stop saying that for that exact reason. And instead it's, tell me something good this week. Tell me what's good. And now we're off on a positive note. And to your point, they're not in, we don't have 30 minutes that have gone by on just a rant.
Yeah. And we're retraining them by you saying, tell me something positive. That's not going to go away. They know that every call, I got to come with a win. So we start that positivity. And then we also train them that we're going to get to your issues. If you've got an issue, we're going to get there. But we're not leading off this call. We got to look at your KPIs, or we got to look at your action steps, or all those other things that we've built into the agenda. But we will tackle something that is on your agenda. But we've got to wait because we want to make sure we're always moving people forward. So Eric and Shannon, thank you so much for coming today and doing this podcast. I really appreciate it. It was so nice to see you, and I can't wait to get caught up on everything going on with you all and with Voda. And it's just because I have such a personal connection with the two of you, which I don't always with a lot of our guests. It's really meant a lot, and I'd love to hear all the positive things that are happening and how you both, just even before I'll share with the listeners, they both said that they're in such a good place and things are going really well. And I'm so thrilled for you. So for those of you who are listening, if you're ready to start shifting from firefighting to future focused, proactive coaching in your own system, then take one of those things that you heard today and put it into action this week and try to move that needle from reactive to proactive. So until next time, go be awesome.